Okay guys, once you are logged into your online accounts to find some information out about your customers, you have one of your dashboard navigation buttons just called customers here in the center. So if you click on this will take you through to your active customer list. Now at the moment you can see I've got 3 current active customers. I've got Bob, John and Lee. Alright, now you do have an option here to expand all, which will bring up options for all of your customers at the same time, but if you've got about 15-20 customers on, that can be a lot of information to look at. So for this instance, I literally just want to look at John's account. So I'm going to click on John's name, and that brings up some options just below. Now we're going to go through each option individually. So the very first one we've got is view profile. So if I click on this is going to take me through to John's profile, which contains his personal information. So we have his personal reference number, we've got his email address, we've got his primary address, his date of birth, his license number. Now, if this customer also has a secondary address, which could be work or it could be school, then that will also be stored in here. Now, one thing to mention with the addresses, it will only allow the customer to add a secondary address on if the postcode of that address is in your area. So if it's in an area that you don't actually cover, it won't allow this customer to put the secondary address in, because the last thing you want to be doing is traveling, say, from Newcastle for the start of a lesson, going all the way to Durham to end a lesson there. So yes, it'll only allow you to put a secondary address in there if you already cover that area. Now what you'll find here, right at the top, you've got PRN number. Now at Pass and Go, we do like to use PRN numbers. It makes it a lot easier for us to find a customer's accounts, to generate information a lot quicker. So if you do have any information you want to send us about a customer, or if you do want to ask any information on a customer, we would normally prefer if you send us the reference number rather than somebody's name. It's a lot easier to find a reference number than a name such as John Smith, for instance. So what our suggestion would be is when you're saving the customer's number in your mobile phones, which you'll need to be able to contact them, save their PRN numbers alongside their names. That just makes it easier for you to find when you're scrolling through the names of customers you've got. So yeah, so you've got their name, their email address, okay, you've also got their date of birth. Now, if a date of birth does say the 1st of the 1st, 1970, that is just a default date of birth, okay? So that just means that we haven't actually got anything on file as of yet for this customer. So that's their personal details. All right, so if I want to go back into my customer list, again on the right hand side I just have customers there, purple, so I click back on that and it takes me back into my active customers. So just underneath view profile, what you do have is you have book a lesson. Now when you click on book a lesson, this will take you directly through to your calendar. And when you go to select a lesson, it will automatically pre-select this customer's name to book into that lesson slot. So you won't have to select that customer's name. Now, if I go back into my customer list now, and just underneath that, you have message PNG about customer. So this is a message you would send to Pass and Go. So if you need to update us if that customer's run out of money, if they've moved away, if they've stopped lessons with you for any reason, you can message Pass and Go about this customer and let us know about what's happening to keep us updated. So to send us a message, you just click on message PNG about customer and it'll take you through to the option to actually type a message in. So for this instance, I'm going to put that the customer is cancelled and they've moved home. Okay, now to send it, all you do is click on submit. Now you can send us messages to update us about anything for your customers. Alright, now you can see here just below is you have the notes that I've previously put on this customer's account, so you can keep a log about what you've told us. So previously stopped lessons due to money, they've moved away, so there's a number of things on here, so they've run out of money. So this just keeps a log of all the messages you've actually sent us. This message now comes to our office and our agents will actually take action on that. So if you've asked them to chase the customer for any reason, or if you have marked the customer as cancelled and you've informed us why they've cancelled, we can just give that customer a quick call and just wish them all the best if needed. Now this also ties in, so if I go back into my customer list, this also ties in with the button just underneath, which is called cancel customer. Now cancelling a customer, if I select cancel customer, that would remove that customer from my diary completely. So before doing that, what I would suggest to yourselves to do is to message PNG about the customer, let us know why you're cancelling them off, and then cancel the customer. For instance, if I wanted to cancel Lee off, I would go to Lee, I would click on cancel customer, and I would click yes. Now you can see that my active customers has now dropped down to 2, so I now only have Bob and John. Now, one thing to bear in mind, if I'm cancelling a customer off, I need to make sure their account is fully up to date before I do so. I need to make sure that I've uploaded any photographs that I need to do beforehand. I also need to do the track records and make sure the account is fully up to date before I remove the customer. Because once I remove the customer, it then removes the option for me to update anything. So if there's lessons that I haven't updated on the track record and not being paid for, I need to make sure they're done before I cancel this customer off. The last thing you should ever do on a customer's account is cancel them off. Everything else should be done beforehand. Now, you've also got messages. Now, messages are messages that are shared between you and your customer. So your customer can log in, send you a message, and you can respond this way. Now, one word of warning here, the customers will only log into their account once, maybe twice a week. And this is normally to book a lesson and also just to quickly check to make sure the lesson's still going ahead. So if you need to contact the customer, rather than you sending them a message on the system, you tend to get a better response if you send them a text message or if you try to phone them. But bear that in mind. So if you do send them a message on the system, they may not see it in time for whatever you're updating them. You know, if you are sending them a message today because you can't do a lesson tomorrow, they might not check that message. They might not get that message until tomorrow, until they actually log into the system to see why you haven't turned up. So the best bet, if there's something you need to inform the customers of, is to just send them a text message. Now, the customers may message you. So if the customers do message you, you will see a little number 1 on the side of the name here. And to find the message, you just go into messages. And once you're in the messages section, as it's loading up, you will find your inbox just on the bottom here. So you will have your inbox of messages customers have sent you. And you will also find your sent messages to this customer. So to read a message, it's really straightforward. You just click on the one that you want to read. And it loads it up. Okay, so when you're in here, you can see the message the customer sent to you. You can send a response if you wish. So I'm just responding back to the customer saying thanks for updating me. So I click submit. And that has now sent that message to that customer. So the customer on their profile will now have a message on their system from me just saying thanks for updating. Now, like I said, it is important that you make sure you're contacting these customers the right way. The best way to do it, like I say, is text message. Text and phone call is always the easiest way to do it. Now, these customers receive no notifications on their phone to let them know that you've actually messaged them. There's no pop-ups, there's no notifications. So the only way they'll ever find out about this message is if they actually log into the site. They've physically got to log in to read this message. So it's important to bear that in mind when messaging them. Okay, so now I'm going to go back into my customer list. Okay, so now just on the messages, I've also got view track record. Now, we will cover track records in greater detail, but to give a brief overview of what they are, these are lesson reports you're going to fill in for each and every lesson you conduct with a customer. This is letting them know what kind of progress they've made, what they need to improve on, and what your plans are for the next lessons. So in view track record, what you can actually see here, these are all of the scores this customer has been provided by a Pass and Go instructor. Now, this isn't just lessons you've conducted with them. This is all Pass and Go instructors, what they've conducted with this specific customer. So if a customer moves from another Pass and Go instructor, you can go in here and you can see what they've been graded on certain subjects to give you a much better idea of what you need to cover with them in the future. So for John, all I want to do is I want to click on View Track Record. And what that's going to do then is that's going to take me into their progress. So you can see here, John has had 21 lessons with a Pass and Go instructor. They might not have all been with me, but he's had 21 with a Pass and Go instructor. And you can see just down the left-hand side, you've got all the different competencies. So you've got cockpit drill, use of car controls and instruments, and so on. And these are all the different aspects of learning how to drive. So you can see that he's been graded on each and every one. Now, when you're submitting a track record, one thing to bear in mind is you're only grading them on what they've actually done on that specific lesson. You're not going to grade them on everything they've ever done with you. So you can see here, John was graded on his first lesson, 5 for the cockpit drill, 5 for the use of controls and instruments, 5 for clutch, and 5 for moving off safely. But there's nothing else marked. That's because obviously that must have been his first ever driving lesson. You can see on his second lesson, we've also recovered a couple of things there. We've also started off with moving off at an angle, moving off uphill, downhill, and changing gear. So you can see there's more and more getting graded. Now these scores are going to be very sporadic around the grid, and this is because you're going to be covering different things on different lessons. Now, a 1, if you score somebody as a 1, that means you've just introduced them to the subject. If they're scoring a 5, that means they're doing it independently and they're ready for the test on that subject. And the other numbers are obviously in between. So the higher the score, the better they are at conducting it. Now, you will see here, lesson number 7 and also lesson number 15 is completely grayed out. Okay, now there's no scores marked on there. Now, what that signals to me is that this customer didn't actually show up for that lesson. So they had a lesson booked in with me. They never showed up for it. All right, so there's actually nothing to grade them on. And that's because they didn't conduct the lesson. So if I just scroll down here, you can see that moving off safely. He started off with a 5 on his first lesson, but then when I recovered it on lesson 9, he actually went down to a 3, so he went back a little bit backwards. So I recovered it again on lesson 13, and he's back up to a test standard. So now these dots, like I say, they are very sporadic throughout, and when the customer's coming up to a test, they should hopefully be hitting mainly 5s. Now, that's going to be on most subjects. Now, that's because you can't let somebody go for tests unless they're ready. So yeah, so they want to be hitting mainly 5s, probably no less than 4, and that's when the customer's coming up too close for a test. What you will also see as well, if I go all the way down here, you also have a notes section. Now, these notes, please don't confuse these for notes that the customers can see. The customers cannot see these notes. Okay, so these notes are actually for yourself. Now, when you're submitting a track record, you can put a note on there for yourself to give you a little bit of a reminder of what you want to cover on maybe the next lesson, anything the customer's struggling with that you need to recover, and if you want to move the customer on to a different subject, what subject that's going to be doing. So you can see here on the 6th of June, I put a message on there that I wanted to work on crossroads with this customer on the next lesson. So that's a really good part of this system. It keeps me up to date with what I want to teach this customer. Now, you are going to have possibly up to 20, maybe more customers on your diary at any one time. So what you could be finding is because you've got so many customers, you struggle to remember what stage each one of them are at. Putting a note on here, and then before the lesson, when you're going for a customer, you can just quickly recap about what you actually wanted to cover on the lesson that you actually just about to attend. It really does keep you up to date with this customer, and it brings everything to the front of your knowledge when you're actually going to take this customer out on a lesson. And that's the track records. Now, we will in a future video show you how to update these track records and also how the customers see these track records. So that is a very important subject. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is we're going to go back to the customer list. And now we're back on the customer list. You will see the only option left underneath is upload first lesson photo. Now, uploading photos we are going to cover in a separate video because there is some importance to that. Now, just underneath you will see 3 different sections here as well. So you'll have 2 hours, you've got 0 tests and 1 test. Now, what do these mean? Well, the first one here on the left hand side, this is how much prepaid credit this customer still has left to book. Now, don't confuse this with lessons that are already booked into your diary. This is credits they still have left. So they might have 10 lessons booked into your diary and confirmed, and they may have 2 hours still left to book in. So they may have paid for 12. Just next to that, this is practical tests. Now, again, this isn't a test that is already booked. This is a credit. So this is if a customer has paid Pass and Go for us to book a test for them, it'll show in here. So you can see that they haven't actually paid us for a practical test or they have no practical test credit left. But you can see just to the right of this, you have a theory test credit there. So that's a theory test that the customer has paid Pass and Go to book for them. Now, once we've booked the test, that will drop to 0 because that credit would have been used because we've then booked that test for them, and we'll send them confirmation out for that. So yes, so this credit on the bottom here is credit that is still left to be used. So that's everything at the moment in the customer list. We'll go into more detail in certain aspects of that in future videos. Until that time, guys, thanks for watching.